Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Musical Connections podcast, second half of the show. This is NextIIConnect, and I am your host, Zach Snow. Well, joining me right now, she is the newly minted Executive Director of MusicNL, coming off a successful Music Celebration Week 2024. They are now planning another 3-year plan for 2025 to 2027, and they have a couple of town halls by the time that this does air. They'll be looking at what their vision is for 2025, and ahead of that is my guest at this time. Welcome back to the Musical Connections podcast, Tamara Kater. T, how are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me today, Zach.
And this is our second time doing this, because the first time we did this, I was working with MusicNL, and you were still running your management company, Maven's Music.
That's right. We were in Corner Brook, Music Celebration Week 2022.
Yep, and that was at the Rotary Arts Center.
And I think it might be almost 2 years to the day because it was right on like the eve of Halloween.
Yes, it was.
Halloween was coming up upon us.
Oh, yes. And Corner Brook was an absolute blast, and getting to meet so much people. You are the one included because you were just about to move to Newfoundland at the time.
Yeah.
And now you've been here for about 2 years. So,
I have, yeah. That was actually like my car was packed to the gills, and that was part of my journey. After I left Corner Brook, I moved to St. John's.
And the housewarming party must have been a great time.
Well, that was my joke, was that MusicNL threw me a welcome party, really, in Corner Brook. So, yeah, that joke has had a long tail to it, I guess.
Oh, yes. Now, you just came off Music Celebration Week 2024. We are about a month or two out of it now. And you are now the newly minted Executive Director of MusicNL. So, off the hop here, just coming off Music Celebration Week 2024, how do you feel?
Oh, great. I mean, it was a very fast runway to get that plane off the ground. But thanks to the team we had, the community support, our funders, our sponsors, all our members, everybody just helped us really, hold a beautiful, successful event.
Yes, and one of the positives about that, the weather was nice. Because normally it's held around this time.
It is, although, if it were held today, it's nice today too. But
Absolutely.
it was really nice to show our delegates and all the visitors from off island that Newfoundland can be sunny and warm.
So what were some of the comments that you received from this Music Celebration Week now, you've been out of it now for the past month or so?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a whole bunch of people that we were bringing together, and we're trying to do a lot in a few days. We're trying to, showcase performers, bring some performances to the community, hand out 2 evenings, 2 award ceremonies, and hotel showcases and professional development and panels. I'm pleased to say it all went really well. And, from the artist end of things, we got really good feedback about the panels that we offered, it really makes me happy because that was something we tried to up the ante on in a very short period of time. And that came together well. The delegates, of course, had a wonderful time. And everyone, we know this, but it deserves mentioning again, that Newfoundland is a wonderful place for people to visit if they've never been here before, if they're returning. And so we always, I think, do a really good job with hospitality, and the delegates who come
100%.
from off island feel really wonderful about the time they've spent. A lot of discovery for them, we showcase a range of artists, some of whom are just getting their touring, their team, their music, they're on the front end of their career, they're on the emerging end, and then others who are already touring and seasoned in that area. And, the delegates love what they hear. I think we also had, oh my gosh, it was 300 or 400 business meetings. All of those were really successful.
Wow.
I just got an email from a publisher yesterday who signed 2 Newfoundland artists. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, lots of really great things came out of it.
Do you know who those 2 artists are?
I do, but I don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't want to scoop them.
No,
if you know
it's
what
all
I
good.
mean.
It's
yeah,
all good.
Yeah, I think it'll be announced later this month.
Yes, they'll announce it. And it's their right to announce
it's their
it
news.
Too.
Yeah,
but it's great to see that, and especially with the time that you had to prepare. You came into the job in July, and you put that together in about 8 to 9 weeks. The time that you had and what came out of it, it was great, and it was a pleasure to be a part of it once again.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much, Zach. And thanks for being there. It was so wonderful to have you. Every time I walk by, you were in the lobby interviewing someone else and collecting all this content. And I felt like what you brought to our vibe was really energetic, and it was awesome.
And I do have one more to air, and that'll be Rosalind McPhail towards the end of November. But once again, I'm very proud to be a part of Music Celebration Week, and very happy to walk away with the Media Person of the Year. Once again, it's right over there on my shelf. And getting the opportunity to do this and cover our music scene and building it one song at a time, as I like to say, I can't thank you guys enough for your support with this podcast. And I'm very glad I'm able to get you on here again to talk about all this.
That's great. That's great. Well, thanks for waiting until I had a nap after Music Celebration Week.
Right. Now, you got the role back in July. How did you get it to begin with?
Oh, well, I expressed interest at the time when Rhonda left, and, it took a while for the actual search to happen. At first, there was someone, Leonard P. Cord did a great job kind of holding on the fort in the interim, and then they opened it up with a hiring committee and an HR professional and as a consultant, and I applied, went through a couple of interviews and that sort of thing, had lots of long conversations with the hiring committee about my background, my vision, et cetera. And there I was in the beginning of July.
Yeah, and when I heard the announcement that it was going to be you, I was so happy it was you. Because of your experience in the management field, you ran festivals, you've been an executive director in many organizations before that. So to have your experience now, especially as an artist agent and manager, to bring that to the MusicNL executive director position, I'm super excited that you got it.
Oh, thanks, Zach. I'm really happy, and it's definitely very helpful. My most recent experience, as you mentioned, when I landed at Music Celebration Week in Corner Brook, I was an artist manager. I was managing Mark Bragg. So and I worked with Mark for, I think, 4 or 5 years. It was a good number of years. I've also helped, other artists on more on a consulting basis, like Quote the Raven and other folks from Newfoundland. And so it really gives me a realistic vision of what's happening on the front line for artists and for managers.
Yeah. Now, with Maven's Music, now you're not doing that no more because
Nope.
of the position that you're in right now.
That's right. Yeah.
So who's running that nowadays?
No one.
No one. It's closed.
Yeah, it's closed. I think I have to update my website and officially say it's closed. But yeah, so bit by bit, my clients, I worked with them for them to find other support. And then someone took over my grant writing portfolio. There was I would do a lot of grant writing on spec just to help various artists out.
Yeah, and it's also helpful to have, too, knowing that you've been there and you've done that, so you know that side of things, and you can be able to bring that to the music.
Yeah. I actually had, completed many a MusicNL grant application as well as
so you know
other
what
grants.
it's like.
So, yeah, I've literally been on the front end of the organization's services and really have a sense of what it was like.
For sure. Now, what do you remember most about your time running Maven's Music and the clients that you had?
Oh, wow. That's a broad question. I mean, I built it from scratch, really, and, was proud of the roster that I developed. I spent a bunch of years of that development. It was like 7 years, and I think 4 were in the pandemic. So I felt like I had just gotten things rolling when the pandemic hit, unfortunately. Yeah. But I loved it. I've always been an artist focused, no matter what job I was doing, is to really think that without the artists, none of us are here. We all need each other, and it's all interconnected. But if artists are not making music, and if they're not supported in making music and in selling that music and having a small business around that music or a large business around that music, it all comes back to the artist. And so that has carried me through many a role. And it was very much how I worked with Maven's Music artists as well.
So how important is it to have like those kind of businesses to help those musicians, guide them on their journey to, where they want to be in their careers? Like how important are they?
I think they're vital, particularly, and it was how I designed my business. So I had a few artists that I worked with long-term in management, and then I did consulting on top of that to try to allow artists who maybe don't need a manager, don't want a manager. They're, things are going just fine the way they are, but they need a little help now and then, or they need a little expertise, or they need some management insight for a certain crossroads that they're at. management is 360. It's everything. You've got to know what you're doing on a lot of frontiers. And in fact, it was one of the things I liked about it is that as an artist manager, there was no way you could know everything. It was just impossible. So artist managers tended to be very interdependent and collaborative. If you didn't know the answer to a question, you would find one of your colleagues who did. I was never really strong in publishing, but I was really strong in international touring and visas and things like that. And so you would develop a little network of interdependent kind of experts, and we would call each other. And I really appreciated that about management. And I think that those types of things, those moments where you need a little support, you need a little information, or where a music industry association can also be very, very supportive.
Yeah, and that's where collaboration really comes into play here, because when it comes to like running a business, especially like, in the music business, you can't do it all by yourself.
No, absolutely not. And particularly when you're trying to be, we're in the late stage capitalist music economy now. It's different than it was 10 years ago. And it's different than it was 2 years ago. And it's just going to keep changing very, very quickly. And so having artists, giving them easy ways to learn and keep up to date with those changes, giving them things like that at their fingertips is a very key part, I think, of what a music industry association can do.
Late stage capitalist music economy. That's an interesting term there.
Yeah.
What does that look like now from your point of view?
Well, I think it looks like some of the things that we're hearing from the front lines. There's been the, absolute practical loss of physical sales. So we don't, artists don't earn very much anymore off of selling their music. They make music to tour music, but then touring's really expensive, and ticket
sales?
Yeah, I was going to say the money that audiences have available for ticket sales is now a lot of it's being eaten up by stadium tours. And a lot of those things are new. And, for instance, the change to live ticket sales since we've come back from the pandemic. It's harder for people to go out on the road. It's harder for them to make money when they're out on the road. Costs are up. Revenue is stable at best. And that's, what I think late stage capitalist music economy is about, unfortunately. And changing again. It'll change again in 6 months. Something new will come up, and we'll have a whole new kind of set of challenges and landscape ahead of us.
Yeah, so what are some of these challenges that you would see per se? Could you dive a little bit more deeper into it? I think you may have already explained it to me, but dive a little bit deeper.
Yeah, I mean, I think the revenue matrix that people have it's just completely different than it was 10 years ago. You could go to a venue and sometimes make more selling CDs than you'd actually made in your performance fee. There were, there was a lot more percentage of revenue coming from recording, and you would plan out recordings, time an album cycle, etc. And the streaming economy has really changed that. So now we're sort of starting to move towards a singles-based EPs. You're releasing more often in smaller packages. You used to I feel like you would wind up a slingshot to release an album, and now it's more like boop, 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 small little shots of content. You have to be active out there all the time. You have to be on social media, or it's just not going to work. And those are things that just didn't exist 10 years ago. Even before the pandemic, I think, certainly on the touring front, things were different.
Yeah, we can talk about that until the cows come home.
We can, yeah.
But I want to get to where you grew up to, because you spent some time in Ontario. You've moved here now to St. John's, but you grew up in Quebec. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up to.
I grew up in Quebec, so I'm an anglophone Québécois, mais je suis bilingue et je parle en français. I went to school in French in rural Quebec, just outside Montreal. My grandparents lived in Montreal, and my mom were from Newfoundland. And my father's family lived very far away, and I didn't really have any contact with them.
Wow.
So the people that I grew up with for Sunday dinner was a bunch of Newfoundlanders, and my grandparents operated an embassy for Newfoundlanders who were away, and in the era where Montreal was a bit more the place you went to from Newfoundland. And my grandparents would take me home for, summer trips to Newfoundland. And so I grew up in Quebec, but I grew up surrounded by a lot of Newfoundland culture that I didn't even realize I didn't even know that it was Newfoundland. I just knew it was my grandparents and my family, And when my grandparents passed away, I kind of lost my connection to the island, and it was the music community that reconnected me.
So, what part of Newfoundland did your grandparents grow up in?
My grandmother's from Grand Bank, and then my grandfather's from Ocrapick Cove, Conception Bay North area.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Now, how did you get into the music industry to begin with? Because you mainly spent a lot of time on the management side and the administration side of things. So how did you get into that?
The way I got into that, I've always loved music. When I was a kid growing up, I remember the first job I got when I was 15, I saved up to buy a little bookshelf stereo and some vinyl. I had a Walkman on the school bus. Like, if I look back at myself in a younger age, music was always a part of my life. I was saving up money, taking the bus to Montreal to go see concerts at the Montreal Forum. And it was just always a part of my life. I played music, but I knew I didn't want to be a musician. And I think if I'd realized when I went to university that there was something like ethnomusicology or arts administration, I might have studied that, but I didn't. And I just kept music as a constant. And instead, I worked in not-for-profit management, mostly in the arts. So I worked in theater, and then I ended up working at the National Arts Center in Ottawa. And in that era, I started listening to a lot more folk music and going to folk festivals. And a job opened up running a folk festival, and I was like, maybe I could marry my love of folk music with my day job and do both things at once. And so that was kind of where my so-called career, as many people know me now, started then about 20 years ago.
And that was the Winnipeg Folk Festival. You were the executive director of that?
No, it was actually the Ottawa Folk Festival.
Oh, Ottawa
first.
Folk Fest.
Yeah, so I worked for them for 3 years, and then I worked in Winnipeg for 3 years, and then I moved back east, so to speak. I moved to Toronto for the first time and ran Folk Music Canada, so a national arts service / music industry association. And then I went from there to management and ended up here.
So what did you enjoy most about, being executive directors and being one of the admin professionals of that Canadian folk scene? What do you enjoy most about that time?
Well, I love the community, and I know there's community in every genre. It's not just, folkies like to think that they're the friendliest ones, but I know that the hip hop community and the metal community, everybody has their own community. And, when you find your community, it's cool. You find people who like similar things to what you like, and you develop, I think, lifelong friendships and a real network of people that you have affinity with and who you can reach out to for professional or even personal help. It's kind of like having an extended family all over the world.
For sure. Now, one of the big things about Newfoundland and Labrador, we love our folk music. We have like trad folk music, contemporary folk, and some of the best acts come out of the province are folk musicians. Ron Hines is one of them. Great Big Sea is another one. The Irish Descendants right now, Rum Ragged. Do you have any favorite artists that you enjoyed listening to growing up when it came to folk music?
Well, my grandfather listened to a lot of Harry Hibbs, and I really enjoyed that. He was also big into the Irish Rovers. I think there was some Dick Nolan in there too. There's probably more that I just didn't know who it was, at the time. And then as an adult in my lifetime, when I kind of started hanging out in the folk music world, and I'd lost my connection in Newfoundland, there were several people whose music was really helpful for me in reconnecting. That would be Amelia Curran, the Dardanelles, the Once, Matthew Byrne. All of those artists were starting to showcase at various conferences when I was realizing how much of my childhood had been Newfoundland imprinted. And so they were just really kind and patient with me after sometimes, you know, after Matthew Byrne would sing some trad song, I'd be like, oh, I knew all the words to that. Where is that song from? And I would just kind of, you know, they helped me sort of piece together, you know, some of the puzzles of my childhood experience.
Wonderful. And some of those artists you named, the Dards, like they're one of, I think we can call them now a super group because a lot of the members now have gone on to achieve some success individually or with other groups. I mean, Aaron Collins from Ragged, Matthew Byrne, Tom Powers hosting Q now.
Yeah.
And Amelia Kearns, one of our greatest singer-songwriters to ever come out of here. I think she started busking when she started like playing and stuff.
Wow. I don't know that story about Amelia, but
I remember.
I mean, she's just tremendous.
Yeah, I remember I had DC on the podcast and he was telling me about that. I was either on the air or off the air. And then Matthew Burns, one of our greatest traditional songwriting collectors that we have here. Yeah. So you have that connection to Newfoundland and Labrador through your grandparents. Why move back here after so long?
Well, I started to collect a lot of friends here. And every time I visited, I was really sad that I was leaving. And I would just read more. I'd go back to wherever I was living at the time and just immerse myself in Newfoundland history and literature for a good month or so after a visit. And, you know, I discovered things like my nan was born in Labrador. And like just every time I'd come home, I would go to the archives and find more family history. And it just, I just kept wanting to spend more time here. And then I almost moved back before the pandemic, but I wasn't in a position to do so. But I was looking at rentals and just I kind of had my eye on moving here. And then the pandemic happened. And that was a period for many of us where we were like, no, I really want to change. I want to do something differently, et cetera. And I got very caught, you know, I haven't hidden the fact that I got very caught financially because not only was I working in the music business, but my CERB benefits were stolen through identity theft. So I ended up with no money. Like even the emergency money I had was not available to me.
Wow.
And through, you know, Unison and a lot of other kind of means and ways, I survived. But I just vowed to myself that once I was out of this, I did not want to be stuck in Toronto paying a lot of rent.
Yes, because compared to us here, like rent's expensive no matter where you go.
Yep.
But compared here to say a Toronto, you're paying like triple the amount of rent for say like a 1-bedroom apartment or like if you're sharing with a couple of roommates. But yeah, that sucks.
It was just a lot. I'd gone from owning my own place to temporarily renting, and the temporary had turned into a more long-term thing. Because of that situation I was in the pandemic. And just at any rate, I just spent the pandemic mostly plotting how to get here and reading more. And I did a lot of genealogy and, you know, researched real estate listings. And I just meditated and prepared on how to get here. And so that when you met me in Corner Brook, that was the long arc of preparation of me being really happy to have finally made it to the island.
Yeah, and really happy to have you here on the island, and you know, being here now for 2 years and now running MusicNL. We're so happy that we can call you ours now.
I'm delighted to finally, you know, be living here and to be working with such a brilliant community.
For sure. What do you enjoy most about living here in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Oh, wow. Geez, gosh, don't get me started, Zach. Like, it's like a whole other episode.
Listen, it won't be fun, but don't get you started.
I know. It's just like, I love the beauty of it. You know, I try to pick as many people up as I can at the airport. If you've never been here before, I'm like going to try to, and you're a friend of mine, I'll pick you up at the airport. We'll generally go straight up to Signal Hill, and I'll try to be like, just not only is it good to like figure out where you are and look over the city and have a sense of what the city is, but to be able to look out to Cape Spear and to see all of this rugged beauty. I love it. I love the people. I love the culture. I love that I can live in downtown St. John's, and I do way more than I did when I lived in Toronto because everything's a 12-minute walk. You know, how far is that? Well, it's about 12 minutes, at least downtown.
Yeah.
You know, so even if it's snowing, you can still go see a show because it's only a 12-minute walk and you don't need your car. And, at least that's the lifestyle I've chosen. I love being able to get out into nature at a moment's notice, like either from downtown on foot or, getting in the car and going around the bay. I love the berry picking. I'm really obsessed with berries.
Yeah, I've seen some photos of you when you're berry picking. Yeah, I used to berry pick a bit when I was young.
Yeah, I just all of it is very exciting. I've reconnected with family that I didn't know I had, particularly in Ocrapick Cove, Western Bay, Adams Cove. Those are folks who are more distant relations, but I just lost track with we'd lost touch through the generations. And I love the music. I love so much. I love the language. It's so poetic to live here, either in a turn of phrase or the name of a cove. I myself have been doing a lot of creative writing here that's just inspired by the place, the geography. I love that often people just accept that it's a really nice day and it's been foggy for 3 weeks. So I'm going to go for a hike.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm going to reschedule our appointment, and I'm not even going to pretend that something else came up. I'm just going to tell you straight to your face, I can't make our meeting because it's sunny out for the first time in 3 weeks, and we all just accept that. You know? There's a beauty about there's a zen about being at the mercy of the North Atlantic, and it's imprinted itself on us over the generations. I love so much that my dark, funny, quirky humor lands well here. I feel like I make jokes that would have fallen flat in other places. And it reminds me that my mom and my grandparents did have that influence on me, and they left the finger of Newfoundland, the fingerprint of Newfoundland on me.
Listen, I'm certain to be very proud of you today with you leaving the legacy that they left behind, and now you're carrying that torch forward for them as well. So I imagine they'd be very proud of you as well.
Thank you. Thanks. I often wish I could convene a conversation with them.
For sure. Now, as much as, for me, myself, I complain about the weather, it's rain, drizzle, and fog, it's snowing. But once you get outside and get to experience it for yourself, Newfoundland and Labrador is beautiful. And you get a little bit more appreciation of that if you moved away for work or something.
Yeah.
And then when you come home, you cherish it that much more. So, yeah, very lucky to be here in Newfoundland and Labrador and lived here for my whole life. And I'm very glad that you find a zen in enjoying what Newfoundland and Labrador has to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, one thing that's really going to be exciting come May is the East Coast Music Awards. They're coming back to St. John's for the first time since 2015. 2020, it wasn't St. John's, but I'm not counting that because COVID happened.
Yeah.
Now, of course, May 7 to 11 is when it's taking place, but there has been a petition circling around with the amount of changes that were announced. Now, of course, with new executive, there is going to be some changes and some adapting to, modernize the system. But people have been nervous about it, and people have been scared about the changes and what's that going to do to, affect the East Coast Music Awards going forward. Now, some of the changes that were brought up by a petition started by Sherry Jones. The accelerator program is going to be replacing the export buyers program. Audio Engineer of the Year has been removed. Some long-term contractors are not being renewed. One quote by Mac Andrews said they are now applications for the East Coast Music Awards are designed like Arts Council applications. And there has been a response from the East Coast Music Association from Blanche Israel, the CEO of the East Coast Music Association, clarifying a lot of this. So, and there have been some people in Newfoundland and Labrador that are nervous about this as well. So, saying all that, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, I'm not an artist manager anymore, and I'm not an artist. So I speak to this differently. I speak to this as this is a collegial organization that we partner with, that, the very membership of being an East Coast Music Association member comes from your MIA. If you're a member of MusicNL, then you're automatically a member of the ECMAs. I've been new. I am new. I'm a couple months behind Blanche in terms of that newness. And I know it's tricky to administer change. I know that's a delicate thing. I continue to pay attention to the conversation, to listen. There's a lot of listening going on right now. And I understand the ECMAs and Blanche are trying to listen as well. And just make sure that we're going to land that event properly. I'm really keenly engaged in conversations about making sure that the actual 5-day event here, I guess 4 or 5 days, carries off as well as it can, because we missed our last turn.
Yeah.
And 10 years I was at the, I've been to two ECMAs in St. John's. I can't figure out how, but I have. And I missed the one in 2020. Obviously we all did. It didn't really happen. So it's really important for us in Newfoundland and Labrador to have a successful event here.
So have you been speaking with any of the executives since this has come out?
Well, we meet regularly anyhow with the ECMAs, and our boards are in touch, and, there are a whole bunch of ways in which we're consulted and communicated with. And we've all been, like I say, doing our best to listen to everybody and bring forward concerns.
Yeah, and I can understand that a little bit because I used to work with MusicNL myself. I worked there from about August to November, and running a music celebration week like that, it takes a lot of work, and not everyone's going to be accustomed to change, but the concerns are real, and hopefully we all have a great, successful East Coast Music Award week when it does come here in St. John. So what do you think MusicNL can do to help out with that?
Well, we're listening as much as we can in the position we're in. So we've carried forward some concerns from our members. And, it's a lot for an artist to speak out. I think they feel the most vulnerable. They feel, and I'm really sensitive to that in our organization, that it's tricky. Sometimes you hear voices that carry legitimate concerns, and then you hear voices, their concerns are, I guess, always legitimate, but it might be more fear of change, and I think you just have to keep working through that and listening to people and keeping an open communication and explaining yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's really important. So we've been listening all we can. We've got some community consultation sessions set up ourselves because we're about to undergo some new planning, and I really want to make sure that we hear from everybody, and that we hear from everybody in a place where they hear each other.
Yes.
Because the one-to-one communication is important, but the big group communication is also important. So sometimes if you hear your colleagues advocating for something, even though you don't really care about that thing, when that thing eventually shows up, you realize that it's because your colleagues have wanted it, and so it can really help people get a wider vista of the community.
For sure. And at the end of the day, we all want to help Atlantic Canadian music grow and Newfoundland and Labrador music grow. I think there's only like one member of the East Coast Music Award, East Coast Music Association board member that's from Newfoundland. There are two staff members that are there, Jing Cha and Tony Carew, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah.
MusicNL right now is going to be undergoing another 3-year plan to guide itself from 2025 to 2027. And you are going to be doing that with these community consultation sessions. Now, I don't know what week in November this is going to air, but this will still be timely once it does air. They're going to be there's one going to be held at the Battery Cafe, I believe, November 13th, and then the other two are going to be held virtually. What do you hope to take away from these community consultation sessions?
Well, we really just want to hear everybody. I mentioned earlier that we live in a fast-changing music economy. We live in a fast-changing world. So it's important for us to, hear the feedback. We got feedback from about 1/4 of the people who attended Music Celebration Week, which is actually really good rate of response. So we've heard some feedback there about what we were offering, but that was Music Celebration Week and not everybody could make it. It's, physically located in St. John's. So we want to really widen the scope. We want to hear from people who are beyond St. John's and the Avalon Peninsula, beyond the overpass, so to speak. We also want to hear from our members in the community in Labrador. We want to hear from the province at large to understand what we can do, not only to improve something that is delivered like Music Celebration Week or other things we may deliver physically in person in real time, but what other resources can we offer? There are online things that we can do. Where are we at? And really, My predecessor, Rhonda Tulk-Lane, did a really fantastic job of guiding the organization through the pandemic, out of a period of instability and into a period of stability. And now that we're in that stable place, I would like to know what we can build further.
Yeah. So Rhonda kind of like, opened the door for a fair amount of people because MusicNL, when she took over, it was around 250 members. Now it's 1,000 members. And I think now where you're at now, just a few months into your role as executive director, you hope now to burst that door down to see what else can we do to grow this and help this, become the best MusicNL it can possibly be.
Absolutely. And actually, how the fabric of the music community and the music economy in our province, it's a big driver in the province. A lot of the things, as I moved here and friends or people who knew me would approach and be like, oh, I'm coming to town. The first question was always, what should I go see? What should I be listening to? And they weren't always asking me that because I'm involved in the music industry. It's because Newfoundland and Labrador and music are inextricably linked. We are storytellers. That is part of our history. It's part of the fabric of who we are. And whether you're telling your story in a hip hop song or in heavy metal, et cetera, that storytelling, carries through in all genres. And what can MusicNL do to make sure that art form is thriving and the business is thriving at the same time? That's really important to me, that both thrive.
So where do you feel the music industry of this province is at right now? Just quick thoughts on that.
That I'm still figuring that out. There's some beautifully unique things about this province. One, our radio landscape is completely different than the rest of the country, and very different from the mainland. We break a lot of rules that way. And so even knowing that about ourselves, I think is important, because when you leave, you can't assume that the things that you do here are going to would work the same way and that the tools and levers are the same. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm still understanding what's unique to our province. There is a lot of capacity for the province to sustain its own music economy. There's a lot of touring that happens, a lot of, physical sales that are actually stronger here than they might be elsewhere. But, making sure the supply chains are there, et cetera, for those things to foster or to thrive are really important. So I'm still figuring out the amount to which, our domestic Newfoundland and Labrador music economy and then our exporting music economy need to stay in balance with each other, and what those two parts need to thrive. And there's more than just those two things, but those are the kind of, at the moment, the things that I'm working to gauge.
So now you're preparing for a 3-year plan to guide MusicNL for the next 3 years. Just looking at next year, what do you hope from MusicNL in 2025, just from a very limited kind of point of view right now, where you're still in the planning stages of what's going to be coming up next year?
Right. Well, for starters, more online resources, like and we captured all of the panel / conference sessions on video, and we are going to start releasing them so that people who weren't at the Music Celebration Week, or who were there but didn't have time to attend a certain panel on touring or social media, so that we start to create a virtual library of these sessions. And so people can come back and watch them again and again if they need to, or watch them at various periods in their career, as well, so that we are offering something that the entire province can access and that there is less geographic accessibility issues there. I'm keenly aware of that. It's going to take us a while. It's going to take me a while to figure out how to, first of all, to listen to the province in its entirety and how to reach various communities that are outside of St. John's. But that's one way that I know that we can already start, is to at least put these 12 panels online. Mm-hmm. And then, I really would like to work, and I think these are kind of intuitions or gut feelings or sort of observations I have, and we'll see what the consultation brings back. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that investing in the support mechanisms for artists, so having more grant writers, more people who are managers, more people, more booking agents, etc. That fabric of support, I think, needs to grow. I think it needs to be strengthened. I think we need to encourage emerging managers. We need to train people so that they have the skills to support artists and to help the artists who want to, some people are totally fine writing their grants. Other people want to just hire someone to do it. And we need to be prepared for both those things.
For sure. And it's especially great to have you in that position now where you've done all that before. And I would also like to shout out Abigail Pye. She's the new marketing and communications manager. She helped assist Shelley Nordstrom in running the East Coast Music Awards delegates export program when we were in Charlottetown last. And just having that good team around you, like I'm predicting a very good year for music in 2025.
That's great.
But 2024 overall has been a great year for music when it comes to the amount of music that's put out and the amount of shows that are on the go. Like, music is back in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And, I also want to give a shout out to Mariana, who works as our programs manager, who's done a really great job of
She's
understanding.
a champion.
Yeah. I mean, always there to answer questions from artists and members, and has done a really great job of debriefing me on what the entirety of the granting landscape looks like for MusicNL. I was on the front end putting in applications for various artists, but I did not have the view of the entirety. And Abigail Pye actually started out working at MusicNL back in 2016, 2017.
Oh.
Yeah, so
I
big
knew
full circle for her.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So what was her role there? Did she say?
I think she was a co-op student kind of internship sort of role. And then she spent several years working for the ECMAs. And I'm lucky to work with such a wonderful team with Abigail and Mariana.
And and you also got a great board ran by Nigel Jenkins and Mary Beth Waldrum. And they're making some new additions to the board. Matthew Barrett is the most recent addition. Someone from Labrador to be represented there. And having representatives too from each of the regions of the province can help out as well.
Absolutely. And I mean, Nigel's doing such great work out on the West Coast as well, with all the work he's doing with Laughing Heart Music. We actually have a call for board members. It's a great way to get involved and, be a part of the change you want to see and be a part of the organization you want to see. Right now, where we've put out a call for new board members to bring in some new folks, keep everything rotating and keep everybody engaged.
So do you hope to see, say, one representative from each region just to, have someone there to get their voices heard?
I mean, we always want to hear that, sometimes the board role is the way to have that. Sometimes just good consultation is also a great way to have that, Sometimes the board stuff is a little, you're approving budgets. Sometimes it's a little trickier. And I think having a healthy balance of a diverse board, diverse in many ways and all kinds of representation, including geographic, is really, really important. And then I think the consultation sessions to really continue to have these town hall style dialogues going with community and membership.
For sure. Now, aside from those community consultations, are there any other big events that we should know about that MusicNL is holding in the next few months or so?
No, not directly here. I've been kind of, catching up after Music Celebration Week, as I mentioned, on things that, I had set aside in the urgency of Music Celebration Week planning. So catching up on our audit, some bookkeeping, all sorts of things like that, and hoping to roll out some new programming in the new year. In the meantime, though, keeping an eye on our newsletter for when we start to drop those professional development sessions that we recorded at Music Celebration Week. That's going to be something. There are, though, quite a few outbound export events that we're going to be at in early 2025. We're going to be at Americana UK and at Folk Alliance. With a MusicNL representation. So taking some of our artists abroad and helping them with their business development and their showcasing.
For sure. And then after that is going to be the East Coast Music Awards. There's also Canadian Folk Music Awards that are coming up soon as well.
Yeah, they will be back in Ottawa, so we might not be as involved in them as we were when they were here. But yeah, always more on the go. And I really hope after our consultation sessions, we'll be able to roll out some stuff in early January and give people some more programming so they have a sense of what's coming up.
And for people who want to find out more about MusicNL and especially, get in touch with you to, express their concerns about MusicNL and what they're going through, where can they go when it comes to social media and like websites? And what about emails? How can he reach you?
Yeah. Well, my email's on our website. It is ed for executive director at musicnl.ca. But if I said that too fast, I'll just go to our website and you'll find all of the staff contact info. I think it's in the About section, if I'm not mistaken. And all our emails are there. All our phone numbers are there. And we really value hearing from people. Email is definitely the best way to get in touch with me personally, just because I tend to be on the go a bit more. Trying to get me by phone can be a little trickier.
I've learned that firsthand.
But email works really well. And even if you want to email me to set up a time when we can talk by phone, I'm totally happy to do that. That works really well also.
Well, we tackle on some very tough topics and also some very important topics. But I love having these conversations because, again, when it comes to platforms like this, I'm all about growing our sector one song at a time and leaving no one behind, really. And I'm super happy with what you were able to do during Music Celebration Week and your team. And I'm looking forward to seeing what comes up in 2025. And I'm so happy we were able to do this now, considering the fact that you were now a month or two out of Music Celebration Week and you've been really, really busy. So thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to come on the Musical Connections podcast. And this won't be your last time. I can guarantee you that much. T, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Zach. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the warm welcome again.
My pleasure.